Good morning or evening, whatever time you're listening to this. Thanks for joining us for this latest episode of Guardians of the Flame and this podcast series, really series of podcasts that we've been following since we made the documentary 3 years ago, looking at peace building in Northern Ireland. A couple of years ago, I interviewed Brother Thierry from the Benedictine, what is now an abbey just up the road from us. And it's an audio interview, and it's a great interview, actually. But we thought, actually, it would be nice to capture him on camera. And so it's a real privilege to have Brother Thierry Marteaux from the Benedictine Abbey up the road here in Rostrevor. The Holy Cross Abbey, I suppose, is the official name, but people know them as the monks, or so thank you, Brother Thierry, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you. I am very happy to be here.
Yeah. So over the years, we've been to the monks many times. We've taken groups and or just gone on our own, or I've gone on my own, and there's always deep wisdom there. And I suppose in the world we live in right now, there is just such a sense of challenges, climate change, COVID-19, a polarized world, a divided world like never before. And how do we navigate these kind of challenging times? And I feel like a conversation with Brother Thierry is maybe just a way that we can tap into something more than just simple answers. Instead of just looking for the physical answers, also to find something beyond just that, and to maybe spiritual. So we'll see where we go in this conversation. Brother Thierry, you're a Benedictine monk. Can you tell us a little bit about what Benedictine monks are? What makes you different than other monks?
So maybe the starting point is that a Benedictine monk is first a baptized, somebody who belongs to Christ, who is a Christian, and who wants to follow Christ. Simple answer for a question which is a bit challenging, because I think that the intuition of Saint Benedict was to reproduce what we find in the Acts of the Apostles, this first community where they were living together, praying together, sharing everything. That was the ideal of Saint Benedict. And so Benedictine monks are Christians who live together, who pray together, who share everything. And I think that what is really important for Saint Benedict, and I think what is really important for all Christians, is to find a balance between prayer, work, and community life. I think that it's not possible to be a Christian without belonging to a community, without praying, and without working. And so the genius of Saint Benedict maybe is to organize a life where all the elements are in balance, where there is balance. And I think that's a very powerful message for our world today, where there is a lot of imbalance. I don't know if it's the right word, where things are not really balanced, and where people and the world is tempted to go in all directions. And so I think that the message of Saint Benedict is to remind us and the world that it's important to keep all the elements together and to keep them in balance.
Mm. Okay. And you live a unique kind of life. You wear white robes, you live together, you pray. What is the significance of a group of people doing that when the rest of the world is going on in a more normal way? What is the point of a monastery? Like what?
When you say in a more normal way, you mean that what I'm doing is abnormal?
It's unique, maybe.
No, but I understand what you mean, and it's again, I think that maybe the role of, I don't know if it's the right way to say it, but the role of monks is to remind people that there are things which are important, that community life is important, that silence is important, that a certain form of simplicity is important, that to take the time to pray is important, that and we do it in a way, in a radical way, but I think that it's a way to be more challenging for the world, and to remind others that don't forget that in your busy life, in the noise in which you live, it's important to find times of silence. It's important to stop sometimes and to take the time to reflect. It's important to take the time to pray. It's important to foster communion and community life. So we don't live all these values and all these things in a perfect way, but because we live them in a radical way and in a very visible way, we hope to remind the world that these values are important for life, and that in order to be human, to be a human being, and in order to be a Christian, it's important to, again, I repeat, to take the time to pray, to live in a community, to take the time to listen, to take the time to be generous, to be simple, to be available, to be hospitable. So that's maybe the message we want to share with the world, and you know.
What do you see prayer as? What does it mean to pray?
For me, prayer is about relationship. So it's a tricky word, because when you say prayer, most of the time people will think say prayers, and I think that the word prayer has a meaning which is greater than that. Prayer is about relationship. It's being in relationship with God, and it's being in relationship with one another. And a relationship expresses itself in many ways. There are, let's take the example of a couple, a loving relationship. There are times of intimacy. There are times when the spouses go and work and, do their stuff, and so same thing with prayer. Prayer has different facets and different ways to express itself, and for me, to be here with you is a form of prayer, because it's about relationship. It's about my relationship with God, and it's my relationship with you. So prayer is also when I spend 20 minutes in silence, meditating on the Word of God. It's about when I sing the Psalms. It's about when I clean toilets. It's about when I am in the kitchen, when I serve my brothers, when I listen to somebody. All these things are prayer for me, because they all say something about my relationship with God and my relationship with my brothers and sisters. And again, it's a question of balance. I don't think that there would be a problem in my relationship with God if I was always busy without taking the time to be in silence with Him every day. And it's the same thing in a couple, a couple who would live together but who would never have a time of intimacy. No, that would not work. So again, it's a question of balance. Prayer has many facets, and many is very diverse. But all the elements must be held together.
And what do you say to someone who, there's a growing number of people who, we can talk a bit about that later, but who are kind of leaving faith traditions, but they're not necessarily leaving faith or leaving belief, but they just, even with COVID, they've maybe stopped going to church and think, do I need to go back to church, What do you say to people about prayer for people who maybe have stopped going to church, or maybe are really struggling to really believe even in God, how would you pray in that sense? Is there a value in it?
First, and I think that it's for me as a Christian. I think, and maybe it's a bit too a way to speak which is a bit too sharp, but I think that it's not possible to be a Christian without belonging to a community. So, for me, I think that the challenge, because from my point of view, the challenge for many people is not first God. The challenge is the church, is the community. And so I think that it's a huge question, but there are two, let's say, in a very maybe simplistic way, there are two aspects. The first is that unfortunately in the world today and in our churches there is individualism is very present, and so in an individualistic society, I don't need others. It's me first. Okay, so to speak about community and church, it's a bit complicated in this context. I can have my personal relationship with God, and it's okay. I don't care about you around. So there is this aspect. But there is also the question of the fact that unfortunately my church, and I think all the churches today have a huge problem about really connecting with people where they are. We are tempted to if I had to write the story of Emmaus, or if I had to write the first chapters of the Nativity in Matthew or Luke, I would not imagine God coming down, or I would not imagine Jesus walking the whole way with the two disciples. But that's the challenge, Jesus meets the two disciples where they are. He is not at the end waiting for them. And same thing with God in the incarnation. He comes down to us. So I think that the problem of the church today is to be where the people are and to speak to them a language they understand and which connects with their lives. So, for many people, and particularly many young people, they don't feel that, you have nothing relevant to say to me. So why bother, So I think that there is the problem of the individualism and in society and in the churches, but there is also on the side of the churches the problem that we have to change something in the way we relate to the world and to the people around us. So about your question, meeting people, people who are leaving the church, and how I think that from my point of view, there is no point talking about God and about, the theology or whatever. It's important, but I mean, in this context, I think that the first thing is to go to them and to listen to them. To do what Jesus did with in the parables, in the Gospels, the Good Samaritan goes down to the guy who is on the floor, on the ground, And that's what the church, and that's, I think, what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think people are leaving churches today, or even leaving sometimes belief?
I think that I think that's what I said. I think that I have been blessed to listen to many young people, and most of them, their first reaction is to say to me, "What can you say about my life? How is it possible for you to understand where I am and what I am doing?" The other day I had a mother who came to see me, she has a son who is 20 and who is going through a difficult time. And the mother said to her son, I'm going to talk to Brother Thierry because I need to process some stuff. And he said, what is he able to say? And the son was completely, it's a waste of time. This guy in his monastery will not be able to understand where you come from and what you live, And I think that's the main problem, from my point of view, is that we speak in the churches. We speak a lot about many things, but very often I don't have the feeling that we speak about the real stuff and about what people really need to hear. But first we don't listen to them. So I think that we have to listen to them. We have to speak a language which is understandable and which connects with their real lives.
Mm. Yeah.
When young people go to church and Father told me the story recently. It was, I don't know when was the referendum on abortion in the Republic, but at that time they are in Belfast. But the priest felt that he had the duty to preach, and for 4 or 5 Sundays he preached against abortion every Sunday. It was just and the father was with his teenager children, and at the end they were completely fed up. They thought, but okay, that's fine, but and so this priest was free and to speak against abortion and to express his views, but I mean, first you listen to somebody who went through it. And then you journey with the people, and you explain, and you dialogue, and even if at the end you say, I am against abortion because my convictions, my beliefs, my faith or whatever. But I mean, you begin by listening. You begin by trying to meet the people where they are, rather than beginning by going down with a hammer.
That's the meaning of your last name.
Yeah, that's my
Marteaux.
name.
Yeah. And so Saint Benedict is the founder of, obviously, of your order. If you imagine Saint Benedict walking into Ireland or into the 21st century, what would he do? I guess you're trying to do that.
I think that we have to be, from a historical point of view, we have to be careful, because we may feel that at the moment the situation is and it's what you said at the beginning. You spoke about this unique time of polarization, and and it's true that it's a very difficult time at the moment. But when we look at the history of the world and history of Christianity and particularly our Western European countries, Saint Benedict was, lived at a time of very, very, very deep crisis. It was complete mess. It was decadence. He went to Rome and he was, appalled by the decadence of faith and the people there. And so he went into his cave and he decided to live his Christianity on his own, and it did not work and people came, But I mean, Benedict felt that we have to go back to what is essential. And so essential for him was community life, prayer, work. And so that's what he did. And I think that, and it happened regularly in the history of the church, people, men and women, who felt, it's a complete mess, so we have to go back to what is essential. I suppose that's what the reformers wanted to do in their own way. It's what St. Francis wanted to do. It's what St. Dominic wanted to do. It's doing, in a way, it's what Mother Teresa wanted to do in India. It's a complete mess. Let's do something new, and let's do something which is concrete and real. It's what men and women have done for centuries now in the church, And let's go back to what is really essential. And first thing, let's stop fighting about things which are not essential. Let's stop, wasting time and energy on things which are really, really not essential.
That's good. One of the things that marks your community and your order, and just if anyone goes and spends a retreat at the monastery, is the silence. And can you tell us about? I'm always struck by, and I'm not the most extroverted guy, but even I go to the monastery, I'm like, wow, it's quiet here, and it does make you confront. It makes me feel like I'm the most talkative person in the world when I go there, and I'm not. But what does silence have to say to us in the world today?
I think that the problem with silence is that it's a means, it's a tool. Okay, it's not the end. We are not made for silence. We are made for relationship, for communion. That's what creation is about, and that's what the history of in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, it's God wanting to be in relationship with us, and us always trying to escape, and to go elsewhere, and to hide like Adam and Eve. So silence is a tool, and the goal is to be in a relationship with God, with others, and with oneself. And it's difficult for us to be in a relationship with God. It's difficult for us to be in a relationship with others, and it's difficult for us to be in a relationship with ourselves. We prefer to escape. So it's why we create so much noise. We keep ourselves busy, always doing stuff, always music and singing and noise and around us. It's because we are afraid to be in a true relationship with God. We are afraid to be in true relationship with others, and we are afraid to be in a true relationship with ourselves. And it's why when people come to the Abbey, suddenly the silence is a shock, because suddenly when you go in silence, suddenly things come up within about who I am, how do I relate to God, how do I relate to others. And it's why silence is a bit people are afraid. If you want a biblical image, I think that silence is like the desert in the Bible. It's the place of meeting with God. It's the place where the people receive this identity. It's the place where very important things happen for the covenant between God and his people. But it's also the place of temptation. It's the place of truth. And it's why we are afraid of silence. Because it's a place, when you are in the desert, you can't lie. You have to go to what is really essential. And same thing with silence. When you enter into a true relationship, a true silence, which is for relationship, then you realize that, there are things I don't want to deal with. There are things I don't want to look at. And it's why silence is difficult. But I think that, why so many people today are tired, exhausted, overburdened, stressed, it's because there is never for them, or rarely for them, the opportunity just to stop and to reconnect with themselves, with others, and with God in a real way. It's as if, and we are all tempted to do it, it's as if they were and we were always living at the surface, and not going deeper and connecting with what is really life-giving, really important for me. So that's why I think silence is absolutely necessary. Not as an end, but as a tool for us to go deeper. and to really reconnect with true life in God, with others, and with ourselves.
And how can someone in their own life kind of cultivate silence more, or a habit of silence and also of prayer? How can, it feels like sometimes in the modern world we have so many screens, devices, Wi-Fi perpetually around us, feeding us information or notifications or text messages that, you know, and it's very hard, maybe more hard it feels than maybe ever before to actually be in silence. How can we, do you have any kind of recommendations or, you know, how to cultivate prayer and how to cultivate kind of silence in the world?
I would say there are two simple things. There may be more, but let's speak about two simple things. The first one is stop. You need to stop. You need to just sit and stop doing stuff. The first step is presence. I want to be present. I want to be present to God, present to others, and present to myself. So I have to stop. As far as it is possible, stop talking, stop doing, stop even thinking, but with steps. But that's the first thing, to stop. And the second thing, the second advice is begin small. Because I have some people who come to the Abbey and who speak with me and they say, oh, I would like to have 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening, you know, prayer. But they have a family life, they have children, they have work, and I say, you can't do it. And you are not a monk, so please stop. Don't do that. I think that it's very important to begin small. And I think that it's possible. To begin with, the most important thing is not at the beginning. The first important thing and the most difficult thing is not the time you give. The most difficult thing will be to do it regularly. And so begin small, just 5-10 minutes a day where you really stop. And these 10 minutes you give them to God, and it's, you know, in silence and with biblical reading, but be careful because for Protestants, it may become just a Bible study, and that's not the point. But just take the time to be with yourself, with God, in silence. Just 5-10 minutes where you reconnect with what's happening within you, because God is within you. He's waiting for you within you. So just 5-10 minutes. And the most difficult thing will not be whether it is 5 or 10 minutes. The most difficult thing will be to do it every day. Because the following day there will be something else and there will, you know. But I think that there is no other way. It's a question of discipline. It's a question of fidelity. If you love somebody, you give the time to this person. You give time to this person. And that's what we are supposed to do in prayer. So I think that the first thing is stop. And the second thing is begin small. And be faithful to this small. Because if you plan to have 30 minutes and you won't have it, then there will be guilt, there will be shame, there will be a sense of failure, so it's a waste of time and guilt and just. So begin small, but be faithful to it.
Thank you. There's a lot there, I think, that we could, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. It's, and I'm struck by how many different faith traditions would say something very similar, or very many Christian denominations. You almost could sound quite brethren there, or the Presbyterians, probably like that too, I want to just kind of come to this reality of the world we live in right now. We touched on it a little bit before. We live, it feels like, in my lifetime, quite a uniquely polarized time in life. Obviously, the kind of America often dominates our screens. Their recent president tended to kind of turn up a lot and tended to kind of very much divide opinion. And then COVID-19 has come, and then you almost get this kind of I mean, most people in this country where I live in Ireland, in the UK, most people take vaccinations. It's fine, and it's no. But in other places, it's kind of tearing society apart. We don't believe in this, and conspiracy theories, and real polar. People moving to the fringes. How do we kind of live in this polarized world in a way that doesn't just kind of say we want to be right in the middle, and kind of create sometimes maybe a false equivalence? Because sometimes actually there is more truth in certain edges. St. Francis wasn't a middle ground guy. St. Benedict wasn't. How do we be prophetic but also be a peace builder in a world of increasing polarization and division?
I think that the first, for me, the first, how could I say that? Our way, I think, as Christians, our way to be prophetic in the world today, I think, is to be careful about words. Words matter. I am always, and in a way it's good, I am always surprised and shocked by how some people talk. So-called Christian people, how they talk, the words they use, it's just for me, wow, it's beyond my understanding. Words matter. We have to be very careful about the words we use, the way we speak. It's so that's for me the as Christians, I think we should be, and because we believe that God, took flesh and became a word, the word. We should be very, very careful about words. That's for me the first thing. We have huge responsibility in this area. I just saw a few days ago on Twitter somebody, and I have to say it, a Catholic priest, who was speaking in terms which were so unchristian. I felt really hurt. It's just unacceptable. And so that's the first thing, the words. The second thing is that all this polarization, all this, the extremes and all these things, for me, it's rooted in fears. People are afraid of many things, partly because all the great institutions have lost complete, credibility. So in the past, these institutions were a ground, people were secure, and that was clear. Now it's no longer the case. So people feel completely lost, and so all this movement of polarization and extremes is for me rooted in deep fears in people. So when somebody is afraid, the first thing to do is not to shout at him, not to, to be aggressive or to be. I think that, and I come back to Saint Benedict, who's in his rule, the first word is listen. So I think that we should listen to the fears of these people, to what they have to say. Which doesn't mean that we have. I don't mean that we have to agree with them, okay? But we have to meet them where they are. And, to speak the truth, how we see it and how but to first to meet them where they are and to journey with them. I think that to ignore them or to reject them won't solve the problem. It's like a child, if the child is sick or has a problem or is something wrong, if he cries, if you don't listen to him, if you don't do something, he will cry louder. Okay? So it's the same thing, people are afraid, and so I think that we have to listen to them. We have to journey with them. And from that point of view, I come back. We have huge responsibility the way we speak and what we say. People, there are unfortunately many people in our churches and in society who, by their words, are feeding the fears of the people. They are just encouraging them to remain and to in their fears, and to. So we have to reassure, to help people to realize that things are maybe difficult and maybe complicated and challenging, but yeah, we will deal with that. We will journey together and we will go somewhere. We will move on. We, as Christians, we have to proclaim a message of hope and God has a plan for us. So there is no. Yes, we may be afraid, but if we put our trust in God, there is no need to become aggressive and to become, because fear. The problem with fear is that our fears generally either they make us completely passive, stuck in the mud, and or they make us angry. So we have to. So yeah, that first we have a responsibility about the words we use, and then we have to listen to people and to help them to realize that there is a way forward.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting. We're here. A few years ago, I asked an artist to paint a picture, and it was Lee Wilson from America, and she was visiting, and she painted this picture of Charlotte. He's a friend of ours. I had asked, could she paint a mural that represented reconciliation to her, and I was maybe expecting two people hugging each other, and she came with this photo she had taken of Charlotte with a rose in her ear, and said maybe the ability to listen is an important part of reconciliation. So that's what I hear you saying.
Yes.
To be careful what we say, but also to make sure we're listening well, that we have this kind of rose in our ears. Yeah, I've heard people say we often listen to respond rather than listen to understand.
Yeah. That's right. Yes.
That's certainly the way of the social media, is that we see what people write and then format a response. Yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit about the monks coming here? I think I covered that a little bit in our first interview, but for people who have not heard, why did you come? Why did Father Mark and the brothers? Why did you come to Ireland? What was the context you were coming into back then?
The context was that. We were sent to Northern Ireland in order to create a space where Catholics and Protestants may meet and may pray together. We really came here with a desire to journey with the people, and all the people of Northern Ireland, because we believed and we believe that the witness of a community of men journeying together and working together in order to create a community and to be in communion with one another, and coming from different backgrounds. At the moment in the community there is a man from Belfast, a man from Mexico, 4 men from France, 1 man from the States, and 1 man from the Philippines. So and we are different. We have different backgrounds and stories, and we learn and we work at being a community. And so we pray together, and we came here hoping that our witness will speak to the people of Northern Ireland, and really it God has been good, very, very good, because it worked. we are very blessed by all our Protestant brothers and sisters who, since 2004, and in fact since 1998, because we arrived in 1998 and the monastery was inaugurated in 2004. All our brothers and sisters from the Protestant churches who journey with us and who really help us to work and pray for peace and reconciliation here in Northern Ireland.
It's I think you've been a really amazing witness over the years. And what is amazing about the Abbey is that you have, well, not so much during COVID, but normally there's every day you have people coming, buses coming, people coming, individuals for retreat. And what is amazing is that something like half of the people almost that come are from a Protestant background. Why do you think Protestants want to go and listen to Catholic monks?
Why Protestants come to Rostrevor, to the Abbey? I think that's because the monastic life predates the Reformation and is really rooted in scriptures. 95% of our times of prayer and 100% of our times of prayer during the day are just the Bible. Sung, listened to, meditated upon, It's just, so for our Protestant brothers and sisters, it's just, they feel at home in our services. It's for them, it's really, it's a really beautiful experience to realize that they can pray with us, and we can pray together. We are Benedictine monks, and we are from different countries. So we are not from Northern Ireland, so we don't carry, except Father Mark, who is from Belfast, but he has been many, many years in France, so he has been changed from that point of view. So we are not from Northern Ireland, so we don't carry the whole weight of the story of Northern Ireland. So for some Protestant people who come to the Abbey, they may find that we are a bit strange, but it's because they are French, So it's most of our Protestant brothers and sisters feel free with us because we are not completely identified with the story and the of the Catholic Church in Ireland. And so that was certainly a very important factor in the fact that many came to us. And we, from the beginning, we have been very, very clear that we are here to pray for them and with them. And we name all the Protestant leaders and all the Protestant ministers, and we in our prayers, and I think that many were very touched and very impressed by that.
One of the real realities of the kind of spiritual landscape or church landscape of Ireland and of many countries is what I referred to earlier as people leaving the church, and I think there's many reasons. But there's no doubt that the Catholic Church has been rocked in the last 2-3 decades by scandals, child abuse scandals, and also by, recently mother and baby homes, bodies of babies found buried in kind of what's almost like mass graves. And yet the church has also done such good, but there's been some real harm. I guess partly I want to know, how do you respond to that as a Catholic priest, but then how do maybe we as people of faith, or myself as a person of faith, how do we kind of position ourselves in the world in light of those events?
So it's a very sad, all these scandals and all these, are really hurtful and painful, and it's very difficult. Okay, it's really and as a Catholic and as a monk and as a priest, it's very difficult for me to journey with this baggage, you know. The and it's difficult to say that, but I'm going to say it. The good thing is that if it helps the Catholic Church to be a humbler church, a truer church, so that's good. And I think that's the lesson for us, for the Catholic Church in Ireland and all over the world, is to be more real, more. The word which seems important for me is humble. Is we have to be humble and to you know, this whole thing about the sexual abusers, you know, it's you know, we have to really ask ourselves the real questions about the way we speak about sexuality, the way we speak about celibacy, the way and I mean I as a monk I will remain single. You know, it's not for me. I'm not going to fight for the marriage of monks. You know, that's not my point. But we have to speak about it in a more real way, in a more, you know, the big, nice and pious and ideas, you know, about, you know, celibacy and sexuality. It's okay. It sounds nice, but it doesn't help people. I just said recently to a priest, we were talking about that, and I said to him, maybe our greatest mistake as preachers is when we give the impression that sexuality is not a problem. It is challenging. It is difficult. It is complicated. It is, you know, when we have a nice discourse on sexuality where there is no hint or no place for failures, mistakes, you know, it's a lie. It's and in a concrete way in my life, you know, it's difficult. And in the church for too long we have, you know, we have spoken about sexuality and celibacy as if it was easy and no problem and you know, it's the best and it's, you know, no, we don't help people. So if all these scandals help us to become humbler and more real, that's.
And it seems Pope Francis has tried to embody that. As a Protestant, I've always found him quite an inspirational figure. I remember bumping into a guy a few years ago, and he had seen a couple of posts I had put up on social media about Pope Francis, and he said, you know, I'm an atheist, you know, and we had never talked about religion or anything before. He said, I'm an atheist, but you like saying Pope Francis? And I said, yeah, I like him. He goes, I like him too, you know. And I thought that was really interesting. This is a very convinced atheist, no time for religion, but somehow sees in Pope Francis something that is quite captivating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything particular you see about Pope Francis that you think is maybe gives us a guide to the future, whatever faith we're from?
The funny story is that recently there was a Presbyterian in our retreat on retreat with us, and he was seated in the lounge and he was reading an encyclical from Pope Francis, and I just saw him reading that, you know, and I said, is it okay? He said, oh yeah, and he was completely, you know, passionate about it, you know, and about Pope Francis, and I thought, wow, it's good, a good Northern Irish Presbyterian. I thought it was good, but I think that what I think is important for Pope Francis, and I think what is important for the Church and for the Catholic Church, is that he's a man of dialogue. He is a man of dialogue, and I think that's what is absolutely necessary for us today. To dialogue, dialogue not as the nice chat around a cup of tea, or as the debate on TV where people shout at one another and they don't listen to one another, but the dialogue where, as I said earlier, we meet people where they are and we try to understand and to listen and to welcome and to respect and to discern Christ in the other. And I think that's what Pope Francis is trying to do. Is really to lead the Catholic Church in dialogue with the world and with others, and in a it's challenging because we have to remain faithful to what we believe. And at the same time, we have to really listen and respect others. I think that's the main thing with Pope Francis. It's his sense of dialogue, and he's a man of the. It's very interesting because you see it very clearly when you look at some things on. When he has to give a talk to a group of people, he can be very. But very often it's not his best. He's at his best when he leaves the paper and he speaks to the people. When you read the paper, you feel that it's okay. But he needs he needs to add something or to suddenly stop the paper and to look at the people and to speak to them. And that's, I think, a key element for Pope Francis.
Mm. Yeah, it's lovely. Maybe I could kind of begin to close this interview. I just was struck by this issue of the environment, the world, creation, climate, and maybe I know you're not an expert climatologist but and even yesterday we recorded an interview in your monastery with Padre Niulagan. And she, she referenced just how sometimes she would have grown up with a sense that, even from faith, that the world was created for our benefit. I think she quoted from the Catholic Catechism. The creation is for man to enjoy. And even if we read Genesis, you could say God gave dominion to Adam. He said, subdue the earth. These words are very much almost sound like this divine mandate to plunder the earth's resources and to dominate. And Padre was talking about maybe we need to have more of a sense of relationship with the earth instead of domination over. And yet I don't think what she was saying is anti-biblical in many ways. I think it's a much purer understanding than that coarse kind of domination theology that is often taught in certain areas of the church. What do you have to say, from a theological, a monk's perspective about the world, the environment, creation, and of course the crisis we're in? How do we respond?
I don't know if you like Aretha Franklin, but there is this film at the moment. I've not seen it, but I saw and the title is Respect,
yes,
and it's about the famous song, RESPECT, and I think that it's a question of respect, but I think that it's part of what Christianity is about. If you don't respect the world, if you don't respect nature, which is a gift from God, how can you respect others who are also a gift from God? And if you don't respect others, you are not going to respect the world and the nature, and nature, It's a question of seeing things in a bigger perspective than just, my perspective, Because if if you follow the thread to the end, we go back to what I said earlier about individualism. It's just about me. And I abuse others, I use others, and I use the planet, and I use, and I use everything, everything is for my sake and for my pleasure and my need, And I think that it's why I think it's really normal. It's really, it's a bit late, but it's never too late for Pope Francis and for Patriarch Bartholomew, and for all the Christian leaders at the moment to say we have to do something for our planet. We have to do something for creation because it is a gift of God and we have to respect it. And in a way, if we don't respect it, we do not respect one another. And so for me, it's part of a bigger picture of respect for all that is given by God to us. And that's.
I kind of notice in a lot of your answers, you come back to relationship and relationship with God, with others, and with ourselves, and with our planet, with creation. It does seem to be maybe it's a central part of Christian faith, but it's certainly a central part of your makeup. Is this sense of we're made for each other, we're made for relationship. Where did that come from?
My goodness me, it's the great commandment. When Jesus is asked what is the great commandment, he says, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. So there are three to be loved: God, the neighbor, and ourselves. And the amount of love we have for ourselves is the amount of love we have for our neighbor. So, I mean, it's and I just read a few days ago a quotation from a very famous Orthodox theologian, John Zizioulas, Bishop John Zizioulas. And he says, I don't remember exactly, but the point is, he says, the only way to be is to be in communion. And he says it's true even for God. God exists because there are three in communion. And so he says we are human beings, we are only if we are in communion. The possibility to be is linked to the need to be in communion. You cannot be if you are not in communion. And I found that very, very powerful. Because it's true for God, so it's true for me. Mm-hmm. I cannot be if I am not in communion.
Well, I think that's a good way to end. I had a couple more questions up my sleeve, but I think actually that's a good way to end. Brother Thierry, thanks for your faithfulness in your life and your witness, and you've inspired me and many others over the years. So thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
And if people want to find about the monks, what are you, Benedictine monks?
BenedictineMonks.co.uk.
And you have a Twitter
and Facebook,
Benedictine monks in Rostrevor. You can see often the text of homilies, the homily of the day. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Merci beaucoup.